I'm really happy to have with us the author, lecturer, activist, former candidate for Congress in California, Marianne Williamson. And she is, her website, Marianne4America.com. And you can tweet her at Mar Williamson, M-A-R Williamson. Marianne, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tom. Always great to be with you. I was really fascinated by the Michael Pollan material you were reading.
Yeah.
Brought back my youth.
Yeah, he wrote an incredible book. So I understand that you have launched an exploratory committee to consider running for president of the United States. Tell us about that.
Well, I have a big announcement that I'm going to make in Los Angeles on January 28th. I feel I'm uniquely qualified to make a moral argument for the deeply democratic and human universal values that run counter to an amoral and basically sociopathic economic system which is tyrannizing our society. And I think if all we do is treat that as a political battle, then even if you win a battle here or a battle there, there will always be more battles. I think we need to win the same philosophical and even moral debate that was waged at the founding of our country. And that has to do with advocacy for we the people, for all people created equal, all people with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The government is instituted among men to protect those rights as opposed to the economic rights of a basically few multinational corporate entities whose only sense of economic and ethical responsibility is the fiduciary responsibility to its own stockholders.
So you're taking this much larger than the frame that many of the presumed candidates for president are using, which is I'm not Trump, or we're going to stop Trump, or we're going to stop the Republicans. You're talking about you're talking like Franklin Roosevelt here, like fundamentally changing the frame, the system of governance itself.
The forces that oppose deep democracy at this time don't care if Trump falls down. They have so many people standing behind that. So just Trump, and at this point, who knows if Trump will even be the candidate in 2020. And even whoever it is, whether it's Trump or anyone else, if all we do is defeat electorally that person, then they'll be back in 22. They'll be back in 24. We need to override that through a genuine renaissance of American political and moral consciousness that will create the kind of political gestalt we need. Something is going on here that is much deeper than any one candidate or any one set of candidates. What is going on here is a full-scale assault on the democratic values that are at the core of the United States. It's already taken us to a point where we're not really functioning as a democracy. We're functioning as an oligarchy. We have a system of legalized bribery where our government is basically more a servant to an economic system and the trickle-down economics, which supposedly was going to lift all boats, and instead has decimated the American middle class and has turned the vast majority of American people into little more than serfs to this system. This is a form of tyranny here. This is a reversion to an aristocratic archetype. So it's a much bigger debate than just, let's defeat one particular candidate. And I think that the political establishment on both left and right was gobsmacked by Donald Trump because the establishment forces were not addressing the economic despair, the chronic economic despair that was being experienced by millions and millions and millions of Americans. That's how blind that system has become. So I believe that we need a much more expanded sense of possibility, a much more expanded, much deeper sense of argument, what the argument really is. It's democracy versus aristocracy. That's bigger than just winning against one candidate.
On this program just a few years ago, President Jimmy Carter said that because of Citizens United, we have become an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery. That's pretty close to an exact quote. You're talking like President Carter. That's good.
Well, that's a compliment. And like Thom Hartmann, if I may say so.
Well, yeah, you're echoing many of my themes, absolutely, and I think this is extraordinary. And I'm so pleased to hear a possible candidate for President of the United States actually talking about these large structural issues that have been brought to us, in many cases by the Supreme Court, with the Buckley decision in '76, Citizens United in 2013, going all the way back to the 1880s. you know, the issues of corporate power and oligarchy, essentially. How do you communicate that? How do you boil that down to essentially a bumper sticker? How do you communicate that to the kind of people who watch Fox News or listen to right-wing hate radio, who really need things in a simple, straightforward, digestible form that doesn't involve words of more than 2 syllables?
Only a corrupt political system tries to take truth and reduce it to a bumper sticker. We're not going to navigate these times. We're not going to make it through this democratic crisis in our country today without some deep thinking. And the kind of people who come from a right-wing perspective and only watch Fox News, there's a large group of those people that's going to vote for Donald Trump or Donald Trump's successor no matter what. We didn't lose the 2016 election just because of them. We also lost because of a lot of people who didn't vote, a lot of people who voted third party, et cetera. I personally think that there are a lot of people who voted for Trump who are disturbed and who are open, at least open to hear a compelling argument for something different. We have one political party that's been, bought into. It's bought into hook, line, and sinker this whole economic theory of, let market forces, really rather than democracy, govern our society. But we have another major party that wrings its hands, like the mother who lets the father beat up on the kids, and she just feels so terrible about it, but she's standing in the hall rather than stopping him. And that other political party has sought to address the pain on the periphery, but it is not addressing the fundamental forces that make all that pain inevitable. That has been the leeching of the soul of the Democratic Party. And only if that soulfulness and real moral conviction is brought back to the Democratic Party will it have the kind of wind that really stands for something more than we got it 2 years, we got it for another 4 years. And that's what I want to help articulate. And I don't think you need to dumb it down for anybody. This idea of dumbing down your message so that you get more people to agree with you, that's not how social change operates. Social change operates not on the horizontal, but on the vertical. Just say what you really think. Say it with conviction. Conviction is a force multiplier. There's a lot of coastal arrogance in this country, like people on the coast who think, well, I believe this, but how are you going to convince people in Nebraska? Then I go to Nebraska, and people in Nebraska are smart too. So I don't think we need to dumb anything down. I think we need to up-level the intelligence of our conversation.
That's great. That's brilliant. So, this should have been my first question, just to make it very, very clear. You're talking about if you decide to run for president, you'll be running as a Democrat in the Democratic primary.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And presumably then you're not just talking about, change in America. You're also talking, and I just heard you mention this, but if you'd like to elaborate on it, we've got another minute or so, change in the Democratic Party itself.
Well, the Democratic Party is not a monolith. I mean, whoever wins the presidency, if that person is a Democrat, is the head of the Democratic Party. All I can do is speak my heart as someone who's been a Democrat all my life. And when I ran for Congress, I ran as an independent, which was a principal position, but I see was a very naive position at this point. More importantly, I wouldn't do anything. I would never run as an independent in this presidential race. I wouldn't do anything to risk giving even 10 votes to someone who is not the Democratic candidate in 2020.
Yeah,
but I think that the point is not what happens in the Democratic Party so much as what happens in the human race, what happens to our democracy, what happens to our earth. We need to have a much more profound conversation than just the power plays of one particular party, whoever they are.
And we're facing an existential threat right now with climate change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as the short-term profit maximization of fossil fuel companies and chemical companies are placed before the health of our planet, then climate change is taking us on a dangerous trajectory, which, as you said, is an existential crisis for the human race. As long as short-term profit maximization for huge multinational corporate entities is placed before the health and well-being of our children, we have millions of American children, Tom, who go to school every day in buildings that don't even have working toilets. We have millions of American children who go to school every single day in classrooms where there's not enough minimum school supplies to reasonably expect the teacher to be able to teach that child to read. And if a child has not learned how to read by the age of 8, then the chances of high school graduation are drastically diminished and the chances of incarceration are drastically increased. We have what I see as a humanitarian crisis. It should be seen as a humanitarian crisis among millions of American children who live with chronic trauma But because they don't work, they have no financial leverage. So it's a massive form of collective child abuse. And as long as short-term profit maximization for Boeing and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin are placed before a genuine desire to build peace that will actually sustain us 50 years from now and 100 years from now, giving a $718 billion budget for our defense contractors rather than the kind of money that we really need to build peace, to wage peace, which means expanding economic opportunities for women and expanding educational opportunities for children. We are, as a human species right now, and unfortunately some of our most dangerous trajectories are being actually led by behavior of the United States. We are moving in maladaptive ways. The species is collectively displaying behavior that is maladaptive for our survival. And every species, if it does this, will either mutate, it will either evolve, or it will go extinct. That's how important this is right now. And the United States should be leading the path of further evolution, higher evolution for the human race.
Amen. Well, good luck, Marianne. I wish you the very best. Please keep us up to date on everything, how it's going. MarianneForAmerica.com is the website. Marianne, thank you.